I'm Carol Ann Riddell. Science and You starts now.
I'm Grant Greenberg, and you're looking at Lower Manhattan, one of the world's most beautiful and recognizable skylines, yet it may all end up underwater. That's ahead on Science and You.
I'm Carol Ann Riddell. Who will be the next Madame Curie? How do young women today feel about science as a future? Today we take a closer look at how women have and continue to revolutionize scientific discovery. That's ahead on Science and You.
Imagine a world with driverless cars or an elevator to space. How about an invisible cloak? I'm Ernabel Demillo, and the future's ahead on Science and You.
I'm Mike Gilliam. Major medical breakthroughs and new procedures are prolonging the lives of pets. They don't come cheap. We'll show you some of the amazing cutting-edge technology and talk to pet owners who have benefited from them. That's ahead on Science and You.
Hi, I am Marlene Peralta at the Science Barge in Yonkers. The technology used to grow vegetables on this boat is becoming very popular in New York City. I'll tell you what it is ahead on Science and You.
I'm Barry Mitchell. What's new in the universe? And isn't it about time we gave Pluto a break and welcomed it back into the neighborhood of planets? We'll talk to Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson of the Hayden Planetarium coming up today on Science and You.
I'm Grant Greenberg in the middle of a Category 2 hurricane, a virtual one with 100-mile-per-hour winds at the Liberty Science Center. But scientists say a real hurricane, a strong one, could be a potential recipe for disaster.
Professor Nicholas Coch teaches earth and environmental science at Queens College. He's also a world-renowned expert on hurricanes and says New York City is bound to be hit hard.
The frequency is low, but the consequences are extreme.
There are several reasons why a hurricane could wreak havoc on the city. One is simple geography.
This right angle makes the New York area one of the most dangerous places in America for a hurricane to come in based on the generation of flood surge. For a Category 3 hurricane, we get a Category 5 level surge.
Professor Koch shows us artifacts from Hog Island that were washed away when the hurricane of 1893 destroyed the vacation spot that once sat off Far Rockaway.
We know that if something has happened before, it's capable of happening again. If it hasn't happened in a long time, it's going to happen soon.
Koch says consider the damage done by a Category 2 storm nearly 200 years ago. It would only be amplified now.
In 1821, what is the population in New York? Tens of thousands, right? A hurricane Category 2 did tremendous destruction and raised the water level from low tide 13.5 feet in 1 hour. And the Hudson met the East River for 3 hours. Manhattan was 2 islands.
The hurricane's path isn't the only reason for increased storm surge. Sea level here in Lower Manhattan is up a foot from a century ago and could rise another 4 to 5 feet in the next 50 years.
You see, a lot of people don't understand when the Weather Channel says that we're going to have a storm surge of 15 feet. There's 30-foot waves on top of that surge. So as you raise the ocean, those waves are going to come in at a higher and higher level and do more and more damage to higher structures.
Gary Conte is on the lookout for hurricanes heading our way. He's the warning coordination meteorologist for the National Weather Service.
New York City typically experiences impacts from a tropical storm about every 5 years and about every 17 years from a hurricane.
Conte says ocean temperatures are rising. The heat serves as the engine that fuels the storms, potentially leading to fiercer and faster hurricanes.
We are in the middle of what we call a multi-decadal cycle where the sea surface temperatures are averaging above normal, and that typically correlates with more hurricanes than normal and more intense hurricanes than normal.
It's like a three-ring circus. Saltwater flooding, freshwater flooding, wind. The time for evacuation is half of what it is in Miami. In Miami, you can sit there, watch the Weather Channel, make a rum drink for 4 days, and then evacuate, right? In New York City, you have 6 hours from Cape Hatteras.
That could spell disaster for popular summer spots like Fire Island, leaving it much like Hog Island, a distant memory.
To a geologist, a barrier island is a very temporary feature. Sea level is rising, and all the houses you see on Fire Island are going to be gone in 100 years.
While levees and seawalls didn't do much to help people in New Orleans when the killer storm Katrina struck, experts agree storm barriers could be beneficial to the Big Apple.
Manhattan is bedrock. Bedrock that's 500 million years old, and it's the toughest rock in the world because 3 times it was squeezed between continental collisions. That's why we can build the height of the buildings we do in Manhattan. So when those walls go on the rock, they're there.
Some building owners in susceptible areas like Lower Manhattan are putting up barriers, but don't expect to see a seawall up anytime soon. One thing's for sure, though, areas that stay dry today may be wet tomorrow. I'm Grant Greenberg for Science and You.
I'm Carol Ann Riddell at Girls Prep in Manhattan. Will one of these young women be the next Madame Curie? Today we take a closer look at how women have and continue to revolutionize the world of science. They're only in grade school, but these girls have already learned an invaluable lesson.
Some girls don't think they could do science, but they really can. So you just get to try, and then you get to be a scientist.
Granted, there are a few steps between grade school and biomedical engineering, but the point here is possibility, and that these students believe in it. But does gender continue to play a role? Julie Desjardins of City University's Baruch College says yes, the culture of science is still very masculine. She's the author of the book, The Madame Curie Complex. In her book, Desjardins looks at prominent female scientists throughout history, women who made major contributions but in some cases got little or no recognition. Another issue Desjardins tackles, the way society historically viewed female scientists. As she explains it, Madame Curie became a larger-than-life figure, but that didn't necessarily help the cause for other women.
It's almost like they can't even be equal to men in science. They have to be the creme de la creme to even compete. Because, of course, Madame Curie was head and shoulders above everybody else.
Obviously, times have changed, but the numbers clearly show men still far outpace women in some scientific fields. Take a look at this breakdown from the National Science Foundation. For science and engineering occupations in 2009, women made up 68.3% of psychologists, 48.9% of biological and life scientists, but just 24.8% of mathematical or computer scientists and 10.7% of engineers. It's an issue Jill Bargonetti, professor of biological sciences at Hunter College, understands well. Bargonetti's research focuses on cell growth and studying better ways to kill cancer cells. She is a lauded scientist with a long track record of awards and honors. She's also a mom and a woman who has learned to balance home and work in an incredibly demanding field.
You have to juggle, and you have to recognize that you do your best, and you have to figure out and prioritize what you're doing each day, but that your family is important just as your work is important. So you can't completely let go of one for the other.
Bargonetti says she chose Hunter in part because it was a welcoming environment, and she wanted to be a role model for other women, particularly women of color.
We've come a long way. So I think, yes, the landscape has definitely changed. But things are definitely more difficult for women. I think it's harder to gain respect of your male peers, and maybe sometimes even female peers. There's a whole old boys network, and it's difficult to smash the glass ceiling.
Like other academic institutions, the City University of New York has taken notice. Distinguished women scientists are breaking boundaries at the City University of New York with pioneering research in fields that are critical to our nation's future. The words of Chancellor Matthew Goldstein, who not only has taken notice, but is taking action, spotlighting and championing female scientists at all CUNY colleges. Part of the challenge is making sure girls don't let gender stereotypes hamper their natural curiosity about science.
There's a question, then we make a hypothesis, then we find out the real answer, and some of our hypotheses be very, very true. So it's very cool, and I just love to ask questions and get to find out the answer.
And Jill Bargonetti has this advice for young women about finding their way. follow what interests you.
I didn't think I was going to be a scientist.
So you're going to be a dancer,
I
right?
thought I was going to be a dancer, and I was just following that guide, and now I think about choreography in cells, and I just followed what I was interested in. I kept asking the questions, and I say to all the young girls, follow your guide, don't let people tell you it's not possible.
Despite historical stereotypes, women have proven science is not a boys-only club. And for today's young girls, the future's even brighter as more and more women transform what was once considered a male-dominated field. The lesson for all of us, intelligence, ambition, and hard work don't have a gender. I'm Carol Ann Riddell for Science and You.
What would happen if the Earth stopped moving?
Imagine you have a big ball of water and you're running at full speed with it and you suddenly stop. The water will come flying out. And so the water forming the oceans of our world, they're going to create massive tsunamis. And Einstein, in fact, has taught us that motion is all relative. So if you are stopped from someone else's point of view, you may not be, you may be moving. And so this whole idea of relative motion is something that happens with bodies that are in space. There isn't such a thing as a body at rest.
Hi, I'm Ernabel Demillo. Ever wonder what our world will look like in 100 years? Will we be traveling in flying cars? Will we live forever? Well, just ask Michio Kaku. He's a physics professor here at CUNY, and he's author of the best-selling book, Physics of the Future. And his new book takes us on an incredible journey forward.
If we were to meet our great-grandkids of the year 2100, we will think of them as gods.
You heard him right, gods. In the future, Michio Kaku predicts we will have technology that will make us seem like the gods of Greek mythology.
Venus had a perfect body. She also had a timeless body. We will have that as well. And then Apollo rode on a chariot across the sky. We will have flying cars, finally. And then Pegasus was the winged horse. We will be able to have zoos of extinct animals. We'll be able to resurrect animals that have been dead for tens of thousands of years.
This all sounds like a science fiction movie. Hard to believe? Well, just imagine what life was like for our great-great-grandparents.
Think of our ancestors of the year 1900. They were dirt farmers. They only lived to their 40s. If they were to see us today, they would look at us as sorcerers and wizards with rocket ships, satellites, GPS, and all this high-tech wizardry.
In his book, Physics of the Future, Kaku takes readers through the next 100 years, and he makes what may seem like bold predictions. For instance, smartphones will be so 2011.
The internet will be in our contact lens. I will blink, and when I see you, I'll see your biography listed next to you. And if you're speaking to me in Chinese or Urdu, I'll see a translation of that. And who will buy these internet contact lenses? College students taking final examinations.
Kaku also predicts cancers and tumors will soon be just a flush away from a cure.
I've interviewed over 300 of the world's top scientists. And when I interview the doctors, they tell me that your toilet will be the cure for cancer.
How's that?
Because your toilet will have what are called DNA chips that analyze proteins emitted from 100 cancer cells in a cancer colony 10 years before a tumor forms. The word tumor could disappear from the English language. We will also zap cancer with what are called smart molecules or nanoparticles. These already exist. Every prediction in my book, and I make hundreds of predictions, have a prototype in the laboratory.
And an idea proposed 100 years ago may soon be a reality.
A regular citizen like me could just go on an elevator, press the up button, and it'll take me up to space.
Right. Right now, if you had 20 million bucks, you can hitch a ride on the International Space Station. 20 million bucks. If you have $200,000, you can hitch a ride on Spaceship Two. You go up 70 miles and down 70 miles.
Okay, I have neither.
But what about the average Joe and Jane? How are they going to go into outer space? That's where the space elevator comes in.
So what will keep that elevator from tipping over?
It doesn't fall down because of the centrifugal force of the Earth as it spins. Because right now you are moving at 1,000 miles an hour. because the Earth's circumference is 24,000 miles, and there are 24 hours in a day, so you're moving at 1,000 miles an hour. And so because this line going into outer space is also moving at 1,000 miles per hour, that's why it doesn't fall.
Wow, you know, I got a C in physics. I think if you were my professor, I might have done much better.
I'm Ernabel Demillo for Science and You.
You know, a number of years ago, Chancellor Matt Goldstein declared that CUNY was going to be embarking on the decade of the sciences. One of our campuses, which is City College, has always been known to be on the cutting edge of advanced science research. We can't forget that Jonas Salk went to City College. It's a 400,000 square foot complex. It's 2 separate buildings of about 200,000 square feet each. Both buildings will be state-of-the-art science research facilities. And you know, each of the scientists will have their own labs. They'll vary in size. There'll be common spaces. There'll be areas for the scientists to meet in terms of the materials that we're using. Both buildings are LEED Silver certified. Faculty love to come to New York. They love to teach here and they love to live here. And we need to continue to be on the cutting edge in terms of being in the game, of being involved in whatever the scientists are able to discover or come up with. So at the end of the day, this is a great investment for not only CUNY, but for the city of New York.
I'm Mike Gilliam. From cancer treatments to 3D imaging to stents for cats and dogs, veterinarians here at the Animal Medical Center are going high-tech to save the family pet. They are using technology to do great things at the Animal Medical Center in Manhattan, even using some equipment you might not see yet in your local hospital catering to humans. This pooch has a tumor and is undergoing a 3-dimensional CAT scan. Veterinarian Anthony Fischetti says a contrasting agent is introduced to check the tumor's progress.
The machine is so smart that it knows when the contrast goes by, and it'll light up the arteries that we're interested in like a Christmas tree. We'll be able to see it in relationship to the tumor that's around it, potentially, or the clot that's around it.
As a vet, what does it mean for you to have equipment like that?
It's amazing.
Fischetti says the equipment, which is cutting-edge technology, costs a little over $1 million to purchase and install. He says it was donated to the not-for-profit center, which is celebrating its 100th anniversary, by a person whose pet was treated at the hospital.
It is very rare in veterinary medicine to have a machine that's that capable.
Where many animal care providers use MRIs and X-rays to take a peek inside a patient to see what's wrong, vets at the Animal Medical Center, where they see 40,000 pets a year, are going a few steps farther and using the equipment in real time as part of their treatment. Meet Mimi. She's a 5-year-old Ocicat who looks perfect but is unable to breathe through her nose. Her owner says she can't smell food or exercise because she was born with scar tissue covering the passageway between the nose and mouth, forcing her to breathe through her mouth, something cats have a hard time doing.
She can't eat because when you eat, you're holding your breath or you're using your nose to breathe if there's food in your mouth. So every bite she takes, she then has to stop, breathe, and take another bite.
After spending thousands on emergency care, Mimi's owner, Elise Smith, traveled all the way from California to save her.
So because she can't breathe out of her nose, she would find a shoe and put her mouth on a shoe, on a bowl, on a bag, anything she could find to put her mouth on so it would keep her mouth open and she could breathe through her mouth. So she's learned to adapt.
In the past, the fix would require major surgery, but not anymore. Breakthroughs in science and veterinary medicine are allowing these vets to perform a non-invasive procedure to correct the problem that might not have been attempted just a decade ago.
So what we were able to do is right through her nostril without any surgery and with a scope and real-time x-ray, we were able to place a stent in that area, so in that nasal passage. And in that nasopharynx, by putting a stent in, we were able to open up all of that scar tissue so now air can pass freely.
The procedure successful, much to the delight of Elise, who has no problem with the approximately $4,000 to $5,000 she's spending, on top of the $5,000 she says she's already spent on emergency care.
We now have access to technology that could make animals feel better, get out of the hospital, spend more time at home, and there's money involved, but knowing that they get them home sooner and they have a good quality of life means everything to people.
There's so much more that goes on here at the Animal Medical Center. After undergoing some of these treatments, many of the pets are placed in rehab using tools like this. It's an underwater treadmill. This is Kofi. After undergoing 2 knee surgeries, owner Allyson Paul put him in rehab to regain lost movement. We saw him on the underwater treadmill. Has it worked?
Yeah, it has worked. His vet saw him from behind and said she can't get over how well he's walking since he's been in rehab.
This has become a trend. More and more people are starting to expend the money needed to keep the pet healthy. That must have been your situation as well. What went into your decision?
I wanted to do whatever I could for him. He was so young when he hurt his knee that I couldn't really see him being a puppy and not having the best quality of life that he could have. And I felt like the Animal Medical Center really was able to give him that.
For me, that just provides such, a beautiful thing for the owner and for the pet. And seeing that challenge of where we can go with this is just amazing to me, and that keeps us excited every day.
So, while these new procedures can be costly, pet owners we talk to say the money is well worth it when it comes to saving or prolonging the life of a pet that's become part of the family. I'm Mike Gilliam for Science and You.
I am Marlene Peralta. In this farm, there is no soil, no pesticides, no heavy machinery, and yet the vegetables that grow here are considered healthier. I am at the Science Barge, a sustainable floating farm docking Yonkers.
The general goal of the Science Barge is to raise awareness for urban agriculture and for the environment and protecting the environment, and to improve our community that way. So really to give access to food and healthy food, nutritious food to people in our community.
They use a technique called hydroponics to grow their vegetables.
Hydroponics is a science of growing vegetables in water. We have no soil in the greenhouses on the Science Barge, so we use different types of systems to grow vegetables in water. So the amazing thing about hydroponics is even though we use water, we use a lot less of it.
We give our plants a nutrient recipe that we mix by hand and then mix into the water, so the plants get all of their water and nutrients directly on their roots. That way they spend a lot more time building leaves and fruits and a lot less time building root systems.
Everything except fertilizers is organic at the Science Barge.
We don't use chemical pesticides in the greenhouse. We use something called integrative pest management, which means if we have a certain pest outbreak, like aphids for instance, then we can release ladybugs in the greenhouse, and the ladybugs will take care of the aphid problem for us.
The most important part of the Science Barge's goal is its educational component.
We have field trips come to the barge 5 days a week, and we run environmental education programs. So we give tours of the Science Barge, we show them what we're doing, we show them the food we're growing, the renewable energy systems, and then we do different environmental science activities and lessons with them to sort of solidify some of those topics that we talked about on the tours.
My name is Melissa Guevara, and I'm an intern at the Science Barge. During the weekends, I give tours, and I've been learning about hydroponic systems and aquaponic systems and about the sustainable urban farming.
And can you give us a tour of the Science
Barge?
Barge?
Why not?
Okay, so what do we have here?
The aquaponics, in my mind, is the best system. It's actually the farming of both plants and fish. What it pretty much just does is that the fish lets go of their waste, and then we just put it through some biofilters, the first one being crayfish, the next one being bacteria, and it gets broken down, and then the plants can absorb all that and those nutrients from the waste.
The Science Barge is a wonderful place. It's a floating urban farm powered by sustainable energy, wind and solar, and we grow tons of vegetables.
Although the sustainable farm can easily travel to other areas, it will remain here in Yonkers permanently. It is open for school projects from Monday through Fridays and open to the public on weekends from April to November. For more information, you could visit sciencebarge.com. For Science and You, I am Marlene Peralta.
I'm Barry Mitchell at the Hayden Planetarium, a hotbed of controversy.
Bring back Pluto! Bring back Pluto! Bring back Pluto!
In 2006, the International Astronomical Union made a decision that shook the universe. These people are still angry.
We represent the Pea Party, and we demand Pluto be reinstated as a planet!
What is it about our former ninth planet discovered in 1930 that's engendered such loyalty? I'd better ask Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, director of the Hayden Planetarium, an early proponent of kicking Pluto to the curb.
It's been 5 years since Pluto officially got the boot as our ninth planet. Any chance for parole?
Definitely not.
Good night, everyone. That's our show.
We knew Pluto had this coming 11 years ago, before the vote. Here at the American Museum of Natural History, we opened to the public this new facility on the universe, and we knew some odd things were going on in the outer solar system. We were discovering other icy bodies, just like Pluto. And we say, wait a minute, these and Pluto look more like each other than either one of them look like any of the other planets. That's how we laid it out here in this facility, and I think Pluto's happier there. It's one of the kings of the icy bodies, the king of the comets. And previously it was like the pipsqueak of the planets. Come on now. You know it's happier.
So why the outcry? Why are people so up in arms about what essentially is a snow cone on the far reaches of the solar system?
I don't think it's just people in general. I think it's Americans. Pluto the dog, the Disney dog, was first sketched the same year that Pluto the cosmic object was discovered. So they each have the same tenure in the hearts and minds of Americans.
So what makes something a planet anyway?
A planet is anything large enough to be round, and with enough gravity to have cleared its orbit of other debris. Pluto is round, but it hasn't cleared its orbit of the other icy objects that we've been discovering in the thousands. It's a dwarf planet. So, by the way, Pluto also has an orbit that's tipped relative to other planets. It's very oval, so that it crosses the orbit of Neptune. It's a very misbehaved object out there.
Dr. Tyson says even the word planet is too vague to be scientifically interesting anymore.
Take the small rocky objects, they're the terrestrials. That would be Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. We're all small, we're all rocky, we're all dense. The gas giants, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. They're big, they're low density, they're gaseous. Gas giants. There you have it. Oh, but what do you call them both together? They're not the same thing. So get over it. What do you call the icy bodies that have comets? Give me the vocabulary that makes sense given how enlightened we are in our capacity to describe what orbits the sun. And then you're talking science.
And although now I was reluctant to use the word planet,
I understand we've been finding new planets outside our solar system.
It's not just a few. We're finding hundreds, and recently with the Kepler telescope, thousands. In this growing catalog of thousands, there could be as many as hundreds in the habitable zone.
So what do I tell the Plutophiles?
I think the takeaway there is, it's not that we lost a planet. We gained a new swath of real estate in the solar system, populated by Pluto and its icy brethren.
So here's what happened. I spoke to them. Unfortunately, Pluto remains a non-planet. But they're discovering new planets all the time.
Yeah. You mean like Planet Hollywood?
That's right. Barry Mitchell for Science and You.
That's our show for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Carol Ann Riddell. See you next time on Science and You.